people when they're hated about it.
Stations. This is the Sportcat Show, uncovering secret chapters, strange encounters,
and the occasional technical mishap.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sportcat Show, formerly known as the Paranormal guys. Sorry about last week, but everybody here had upper respiratory and just blah going around, and so we were all out sick last week. Hello, Chris. Welcome to the chat. Everybody on Dare Talk Radio in Australia, you're welcome to come over and find us under the Sportcat Show and join the live chat. We got some great people here. Cooley has already been in here, or Sage has already been in here wearing us out. Chris is here. Welcome. Jen, how the
Hello,
heck are you?
Chris. I am doing well.
Good. Any revelations on Priuses or anything? We're going to be talking about sword fighting here in a minute. So
yeah. All I can say is that when I'm driving through town in the wintertime, it's not Toyotas that are on the side of the road broken down. There you go. So it's not Subarus either, by the way. But all right, we got a great show lined up. Let's bring Sebastian out. He's got a book out or coming out called Our Lady of Blades, and we're going to talk about knives, sword fighting, and I don't know. Well, he just left. He just left the studio. No. All right, Jen, ad lib. I was going to ask him about his belligerent cats. How can cats be belligerent?
Maybe his cat bit into the wire and cut his feed. That was weird. I was about to push the button and he disappeared. I'm like, what did I do?
Maybe he disconnected or he's coming back on. But
I hope so. But well, if not, we'll figure it out. We got all kinds of things going on here.
We can hypothesize.
We can talk about sword fighting. So you're a martial artist, but you've never done what is that?
No, but I did hit my brother on the head with a broomstick once. Does that count?
Well, did he deserve it?
He chopped the back of my leg with a shovel. Yeah, he totally deserved it.
He deserved it. Yeah, he deserved it. So
he's like I'm Terminator, like that in the back of my leg.
All right, Sebastian's back. Let's bring him back out here. Hey, Sebastian.
Hi.
We were curious. Did the cats bite your wire and cut the feed? Was that?
I attribute it to ghosts.
Well,
the gremlins.
I always call my problem.
Whenever I have a bad
for your leg question.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Whenever I have like a bad phone signal, I always say, "Oh, somebody's. It's a Pokemon Go, and there must be a Pokemon in this area."
Yeah, that'll do it.
See, I say that, and it's the government listening, and they probably are.
Oh, they must be very bored if they're listening in on my phone calls.
Well, I'm down below you also. Our government.
I gotta hope they have better things to do.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Sebastian, welcome to the show, and we don't really bite. Well,
we nibble.
It's kind of mean. You've got a book coming out, but it's not your first book. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then Jen and I were fighting backstage before you showed up to see who was going to get to ask the hard-hitting questions. So.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, so for those in your audience that don't know me, I'm Sebastian de Castell. I'm a Canadian fantasy author. I'm best known for a couple of fantasy series, the Swashbuckling fantasy series called The Great Coats that began with Trader's Blade, and that kind of launched my career as part of a 4-book series back in 2014. And I got very lucky early on. It was, nominated for a few awards and sold well and all those things. And then shortly thereafter, I signed an 8-book deal for a series called Spellslinger, which has been translated into more than a dozen languages and optioned for film and TV and all those good things. And so that brings me to my 18th novel, which is Our Lady Blades, which is the one that's about to come out, and which took me 7 years to write, strangely enough.
Sometimes they do take a while, don't they?
They do. I literally wrote and had published 8 books while writing this one book.
Really?
I find that I have to, like, I don't know about you, but I find that I have to be in a certain mood to write a certain story. Like sometimes you just cannot get into that mood, and that every story has its own theme or its own aura, and you just can't get into it because you don't feel it. You're not in that mindset. So
yeah, writer's block is my default, waking position. And it's funny because so often one of the questions writers get asked about a lot is their process. And for me, every book is so different that it ends up having its own process. When I was writing Play of Shadows, for example, which is a swashbuckling fantasy novel set in a theater, and it's the whole magic system is built around actors and acting. I found myself stuck on that book until I thought to myself, you know what, I've worked with theater people before and they work with scripts. So I wrote the first draft of it as a theater script, as if it was a play. Play of Shadows, as it turns out, instead of outlining it. And that allowed me to kind of explore all the different parts of that world in terms of the settings and really focus on the dialogue and the interactions between characters. And so that was just a really wonderful way to write that novel. But when I sat down to write Malevolent 7, which was a book of mine that came out a couple of years ago, and I was, again, very fortunate with the success of that book, I wrote that book in a month. I intentionally wrote it entirely on impulse. I just wanted to write whatever I kind of felt like writing. I was in a bad mood, so I was writing wizards going around blowing things up and swearing constantly. And then the sequel has the world's literature's first vampire dragon kangaroo in it. So every book is just a very different process. It's exactly as you say, Jen. Like you have to find, it has a different vibe. You have to find a different way into it.
absolutely. I have to admit, I saw you when you were doing your tour. I came in and got a book signed. I got The Magnificent 7 and 8. And
That's
I got them
right.
signed by you, yes, because I came to, I think you were in, was it Chestermere? Chestermere?
Chestermere? No, it wasn't Chestermere. So
You were on your
that
way
tour-
to Calgary, and I saw
Oh,
you like the last like hour that you were there.
Oh goodness, yeah. So it might have been in what is that place? St. Albert or there's so many different towns on that
Yeah,
tour
and
because
you were going to a lot of different places, but yeah, I remember because I drove out to not only see you and get your book, but also to meet with your publicist, Mickey,
Yeah.
who is also my publicist, and I had never
right.
met him in person. But I remember we talked about like craft and being confident in everything that you release, and I had a very, I was excited that we were going to be interviewing you. So I was looking at your bio and I was looking at all the things that you've done as jobs, and I was like, wow, I've had a lot more jobs than me.
Well, that's the good thing about being old, is you've had the chance to do lots of to fail at many, many different things.
Fail.
Yeah, no, I've always been a traveler by nature, not just in terms of actually traveling to lots of different countries, but in terms of vocations. And, I started out in university after 20 other majors getting a degree in archaeology, which turned out to be the worst possible degree for me because to do good field archaeology, you need to really enjoy camping. And I appreciate a really good concierge. And so, I went from there to being, a full-time musician and a touring musician to doing fight choreography and theater productions and doing some acting. I was the world's third worst professional actor. to, you know, working at places like Vancouver Film School and doing all these different things. But that's the great thing about the world we live in. It's constantly changing. It's very undefined. But if you're willing to kind of find a path through it, there's always lots of opportunities for exploration.
And I know in your bio you said that every single job that you had, okay, because you were even an ombudsman and a teacher.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
That every single job that you had kind of helped to, you know, as far as helped in your writing, as far as like something about that job kind of inspired you or gave you some experience and insight that helped you do the writing.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. For example, you know, archaeology. One of the things you really take out of archaeology, you know, when you go into archaeology, you always think, oh, it's going to be Indiana Jones, and I'm going to, you know, and I'm going to study, quote, the past. And one of the first things they teach you in archaeology is we don't study the past. We study the material remains of the past. You know, and so there's an old quote, you know, I look towards the past with my feet firmly grounded in the present. And one of the things you learn from that is that our sense of the past is always a reconstruction. And we know this intuitively. We know that our memories are, as human beings, are reconstructions. But in fact, our collective memory as a society is based on artifacts. Even in the modern era where we have, you know, video and things like that to sort of chronicle different things, that's just one element. Our interpretation of it shifts over time. And so whenever I'm writing, you know, a novel, and I, you know, write fantasy novels for a living, I often find myself dealing with situations and characters where it's important to me to show that their sense of what really happened is a kind of a construction, a story that they tell themselves. So archaeology was wonderful for that. You know, being a performing musician was wonderful because it teaches you the rhythm and how audiences respond to things, and how much of the way that we react to stories has to do not just with the plot or the characters, but actually the rhythm of the prose. You know, so we often sort of in the modern era, we sort of almost denigrate prose as if it's like a varnish you put on the building, you know, on the house after the house is built,
Make
right?
it pretty.
The house is built. Yeah. But in fact, it's not true. The only thing that's real are the words. Everything else is imaginary. The words are the things on the page. So each profession gives you an insight. It's one of the beautiful things about writing, which is that it doesn't belong to any one group. It really belongs to all of us. It's the inheritance that comes from literacy. And whatever you happen to do in life, whatever your career has been, even if you don't start writing until you're 60, you then have all of that insight from that life to kind of put into your fiction. And it means that if you follow that thread of your own expertise, your own experiences, then what you write will always have a unique lens on it. You're approaching it differently than someone who maybe didn't spend a summer, you know, installing heating systems or whatever it happens to be. I never did that, tragically. It'd be a useful career to have right now.
I bounced around when I was younger to many different careers, so I've got a lot of experience in retail, apparently. But I love how you compare, you know, you're talking about the prose, like the varnish. I've always thought of like the words are like, I think about it as like a traffic analogy. So the words are the road and the cars, but the prose are like the flow of traffic. And if you get an awkward sentence, that's like a red light. But if they're flowing well, then you don't get the traffic jams. It's like a traffic circle or a yield sign. You can go when it's clear, and you don't stumble over things.
No, that's a great analogy, because in fact, sometimes one of the things you want to do is stop the traffic hard. You know,
yeah, you got to stop it eventually, right?
Yeah. Well, or just you want certain moments. You know, there's a famous book about comics. I think it was written by a guy named
oh yeah, you're talking about The Break.
Scott McCloud. Yeah, and he said there's a reason why the panels are in those boxes, because the space between each panel is kind of a breath. It's a place for the afterimage to hold. It's where the reader allows their imagination to take over for that brief instant before you ground them again. And
Yes.
so, yeah, those are, it's one of our key tools as writers. It's true of
Oh, yeah.
poets and songwriters as well.
And I know that although, because I am a big fan of action, I love writing my action chapters. But you cannot just have a book that is straight action all the way through. Your characters have to have time to breathe. I don't know about you, but I love writing the action. I find it really easy. I struggle with those quiet moments, those quiet chapters where they're like, okay, let's have a conversation. Let's exchange information. Let's, it seems like they feel like they drag, but you're not, you have to have it slower because your audience needs to breathe.
Oh, absolutely. I always think a really great source to look at is Aaron Sorkin, the screenwriter. He's a TV writer who also writes films. He wrote The West Wing, The Newsroom. He did, and now he's done a bunch of movies as well. He did The Social Network and all these things. And the amazing thing that he can do is he can write a scene that is nothing but someone walking up to a secretary and asking for something and her responding and him saying something and then walking away, that is intensely dramatic, because he will find ways to elevate meaning out of those things. So for example, he will make it so that the secretary has been desperately wanting to have a conversation with her boss about a possible raise, and is on the verge of doing it, but the boss is suddenly kind of terse and almost demeaning, and that causes her to reconsider, and so all of that ambition is suddenly halted in the story. And so those scenes can be riveting. By the same token, as you're sort of saying, in terms of action scenes, often writers think that action scenes are sort of a get out of jail free card. Well, of course it's going to be exciting. There's a sword fight or there's magic explosions, right? But in fact, often the opposite is true, because those scenes tend to elevate action over meaning, and ultimately it's always meaning that captures us. I often, when I do, every once in a while I'm asked to do like a sort of a masterclass thing on writing sword fights and action scenes and stuff, and I'll always show two clips, one from films, one from The Princess Bride, which is the scene with Wesley and Inigo, the sword fight. Yeah.
Yeah, the long one. Yes.
Yeah, the long one. Yeah, the long, beautiful, classic swashbuckling one.
Yeah, you're always just like, are they going to fall off the wall the entire time?
Exactly. And the other is the opening scene from The Duelists, which was Ridley Scott's first film, choreographed by Bill Hobbs, a famous choreographer from, also I think he was one of Errol Flynn's stunt doubles. And it's the opposite. It's mean, it's dirty, it's stochastic. There's no dialogue. But when you watch those scenes, you realize that it's all about creating meaning from the action. So in The Duelists, it's that we're seeing these two characters, one who's terrified, who we know is about to die, who's almost certainly going to lose this duel, and what it means to them and how they get from the place of trying to find a way out of this duel to recklessly getting themselves killed. And then the other side, I think the character is Ferrod, played by the legendary Harvey Keitel, who we see him and how dismissive he is, and how this is just almost an incidental event for him, this duel that's going to take a person's life. And in fact, when the other person dies too quickly, he's insulted. And so it's all about elevating meaning. And that's why, whether you're writing a very calm dialogue scene or you're writing a thrill fest action scene, it's all about asking, what are the meaningful human events that we can kind of surface from this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like to add a lot of humor in those quiet moments, because life is humorous, and very real situations that maybe we're going to encounter, because we have quiet moments in our life, and I try to make them as real as possible. If that makes any sense. I think I'm just rambling.
No,
so
it makes perfect sense.
I was going to ask you, when you're writing these fight scenes, are you focused on the visual, like the scenery, the realism of it, or are you are you spending some time focusing on the emotion of it?
So it's ultimately all about the emotion, but one of the things that can deny the reader a chance to get to an emotional response is if they are struggling to awaken a picture in their heads. So Dean Wesley Smith, kind of a legendary novelist, I think he had literally published hundreds of novels and 1,000 short stories or something insane like that. And he always talks about this term he uses called depth, and which is you need to sink the reader deep into the place of the story before you try to give them plot. And so he often does these workshops and courses, and he'll make you write 400 words, and if there's one word of plot in there, he'll just stop and throw it away, which is funny because usually we think as writers, oh no, you have to start with action, but actually you have to start by bringing the reader into the world of the story. And it's true of fight scenes. So for example, one of the things that I find is really useful to remind writers is that if you were to take, let's say, a sword fight, and in real life, most sword fights last between 10 seconds and a minute and a half, unless the fighters are wearing armor. But a classical duel, these things didn't go on for hours, or if they did, there weren't a lot of exchanges. There's a lot of stopping and starting. But if you were to write the equivalent of a 3-minute fight scene and describe every single move in it, it would be the most boring book since the Yellow Pages. And so, but if you don't describe any of the moves, then how is the reader supposed to know the difference between an elegant small sword duelist, using this beautiful 17th century, very light, point-focused weapon versus a longsword fighter swinging this big, 3-foot-long blade, that can chip armor. And so what I often say is you have to go through these stages. So for me, with a fight scene, first we need to understand something about the characters. Which, if you think of that scene we were talking about the Princess Bride, right? How does it begin? It begins not with them fighting or arguing. It begins with a moment of they have to create trust between one another because Wesley's taking too long to climb up this mountain. Inigo's waiting there to kill him. He tries to convince him, look, I'm going to, I'll pull you up on the rope. Wesley says, but then you're just planning to kill me, so why should I trust you? And Inigo says, well, how can I make you trust me? And Wesley says, I don't think you can, so you just have to wait. And then Inigo says that line, I swear on the life of my father, where you suddenly know there's something very important. And and when Wesley gets to the top, what do? They have this conversation because he's giving Wesley a chance to catch his breath, where we realize that we don't want these two people to die. And that's where we get to the stakes. And one of the most fascinating things about that fight scene is the stakes are not, will our hero be killed or will the villain be killed? It's, we want these guys to be friends. We don't want either of them to get hurt. How are they going to do this? Because they're clearly put in a position to fight to the death, but we desperately want them to survive. So once you've done that, once you've established a sense of character and a sense of stakes, then for me, that's where you want to do what I sometimes call sort of the testing phase of a fight. Most people, very rarely, if they get into a fight, very rarely will people just throw themselves at each other because human beings are generally not that suicidal. So
there's usually some posturing.
There's posturing, and then there's some tentative movements with the weapons. Or in a bar fight, one person pushes the other because they're still far enough away. They want to see what happens. How fast does this person react? How violently do they react? And that phase, and again, if anybody goes and rewatches that wonderful Princess Bride fight, you will see that the first part, we are watching the blades go and we're seeing how they work. We're seeing them test each other, but through seeing them test each other, we're seeing exactly how those rapiers move. And that in a book is the first thing, the third thing that I'll do. After I've established a sense of character, a sense of stakes, then I'll show in quite a lot of detail, because if you think about it, if you were standing there about to fight a duel and someone pulled out an axe, you would notice everything about that axe. You'd think about how heavy it likely was and what would happen if it hit you and the shape of it and all those details. And when the person took the first swing at you, you would be so acutely aware of they brought the axe up high and then they brought it down in a diagonal line that they were going to cut a sapling from the ground, right? And and then you go, well, what did that person do? Well, I sidestepped to the right and then lifted my foot and slammed it on the haft of the axe so that he couldn't pull it back fast enough, but he was stronger than me. He yanked it and I fell over backwards. You describe everything to the point where the reader can now begin to choreograph the fight themselves. And then for me, that's when you can now move into dialogue and internal things and threats and the environment, whatever else, the plot sort of oriented stuff, because the reader is now, while you're doing that, while you've stopped describing particular moves, and the reader is still choreographing them in their heads, and that's where they're fully engaged. So that's my process for that.
I like how, sorry, Glenn, I'm not giving you a chance to ask any questions.
No. Well, I'll interrupt here for a second. How soon do you get into the action when you're writing a book? Because you have to set it, but how soon can you have that first fight or bomb explode or whatever? How soon does that happen?
You know, it's interesting. Earl Stanley Gardner, who wrote the Perry Mason books back in the early part of the 20th century, who was, in fact, I believe, the best-selling author of almost the entirety of the 20th century, even though most people don't remember him now. He was incredibly prolific. He wrote hundreds and hundreds of mystery stories and novels and things like that. He, at one point in his career, railed against the fact that mystery novels and a lot of crime TV shows open with what they think of as action, like somebody being murdered or a body being discovered. And he said, how can that be meaningful? We don't know the person who's been killed. Therefore, it's just a random body. We're turning a human being into a plot device. So if I'm starting with action, I will spend quite a lot of time in that action setting up the characters within the scene. So even if there's a fight going on, I will make that fight move quite slowly in the beginning so that I can establish the characters in it. So for example, my fourth novel was called Tyrant's Throne. It was the conclusion of the Greatcoats Quartet. And it opens with what appears to be a wedding scene on a barge, this beautiful opulent barge, and sort of imagine a kind of a 17th century gilded sort of barge with all this wedding streamers and all these noble guests, where it appears that there's a wedding play going on. So I just invented a device called a wedding play, where they would put on a show for the guests, but is in fact this young woman, this young traveling magistrate, who's about to be murdered by the groom who's set this all in motion. And so there's this tension between, we're not sure whether it's just a play as these people are pulling swords on her, or whether it's an actual murder about to unfold and what's going on. And so I unfold that slowly enough that I can give a sense of the characters and therefore create the tension, because a bomb going off is not tense. In fact, it is the release of tension in a physics sense of the word, right? And Elmore Leonard, I think it was Elmore Leonard who said, thriller is a guy walking into a room with a gun. Suspense is two guys having a conversation or playing poker, not realizing there's a bomb under their table.
And
we know exactly. And so that creates tension. And so you have to find your ways to create tension. There are certainly lots of writers who and I write a lot of action scenes simply because I write a lot of swashbuckling fantasy. That's sort of my genre. And there are writers who will just sort of launch into action and sort of almost pure action because for them it's fun, and for some readers it's probably fun too, in the same way that there's lots of people like what's called lit RPG, which is basically books in which a character goes into a video game world and you learn every detail about the game and the rules and how you advance in levels and all of this kind of stuff. For some people that sort of stuff is fun, but I think for the majority of readers, we want to feel a human connection with characters before we're willing to invest in them.
And I know just from experience, because I did tournaments. I was in karate for many years, and I remember the tournaments. It was that anticipation up to the start of that fight that was the worst. Once the fight started, all of that forgot. You were acting on instinct, on react. That it's just all about movement. It was less about emotion. There was no emotion. It was just move, 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 or you're going to get hit, kind of thing. And so, that anticipation up to that point. I like that you say like the bomb. It's just the release of that conflict.
No, absolutely. And in fact, a friend of mine, Christian Cameron, who also writes as Miles Cameron, and he's a very popular historical adventure writer, and as Christian Cameron, and then a fantasy and science fiction writer as Miles Cameron. He's also former military and an intelligence officer, and he will often say, the biggest illusion of a novel in which there are sword fights is the notion that the person could remember what happened. So because when you're in a fight for your life, there is no part of you that has time to think about what you're doing. It is literally happening on instinct, and you will remember almost none of it. And so he and I both talk about the different ways that we find in order to allow for the reader to be in the mind of a character who's experiencing that. Despite the fact that in life, sorry, my cat is, for those of you who are just
Flashing
listening
us.
On the radio, my cat was very determined to stick his butt right in front of the camera.
Is that your belligerent cat?
That is definitely one of the two belligerent cats. He was the basis for Rikus, the murderous, thieving squirrel cat in the Spellslinger series. He's also, because one of the things that makes Rikus entertaining as a character is he's literally a talking squirrel cat who's convinced he's the apex predator of the animal kingdom. And our cat Peluche always thinks he is the toughest cat in the world. He is very small. He is not remotely tough. He has never won a fight in his life.
It's like the Chihuahua complex.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think a friend of mine called it like feline Napoleon complex.
I like that.
My cat's just the opposite. He's 22 pounds and got 28 claws. He's a Hemingway cat, and he is the biggest wuss. That doorbell rings or he hears the garage door opening, he's gone.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, if there's a fence, when our dog, my long time ago, I don't have him anymore, but he was a little Pomeranian, and he's fiercely barking at somebody. As long as there's a barrier between him and them, there's no barrier, he's hiding behind me.
Yeah.
You are the barrier.
I am the barrier.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We met a bear out walking, and I was the barrier.
Wow.
Smart dog.
Yeah.
I just feed the dog to the bear and give you a little extra time to run.
That's it.
I think the dog was going to take off in the other direction. I'm sitting there yelling at the bear, like, go, and it's just standing there looking at me. I'm like, okay, I got nothing.
The dog
I don't know what to do.
Smart one in this.
I was like, if that bear is running at me, I'm going to run at it, screaming at the top of my lungs, because I know you don't run the other way. Sorry. I digress.
Yeah, I think my wife and I ran into a bear a few years ago, and I think I've been listening to Coldplay. So I think we started singing Coldplay very loudly at it, which turns out to be very effective at getting bears to run away.
I'll have to remember that.
Yeah.
So your bio says you hail from Vancouver.
That's right.
Born and raised?
No, I was born in Quebec.
Okay.
And then I see one of your comments is his cat sounds like Scrappy Doo, and that is a very good analogy for my cat. But just a grumpier Scrappy Doo from the Scooby Doo show. But I moved out here when I was 15, and then accidentally have lived here most of my life. And we travel a lot, which is always tricky because we often travel to Europe or North Africa, and of course, it's a 9.5 hour flight from Vancouver to get to Europe. So if we lived on the East Coast, it would be a little bit easier. But Vancouver is obviously a very beautiful place. It's a wonderful place if you like being outdoors and just appreciating sunshine and nice weather.
Yeah, I spent the first half of my life in northern BC, and I've spent the rest of my life in Alberta, and I haven't traveled, but I would love to travel because I heard it's a good way to get inspiration for story writing. Is that why you travel a lot?
Travel's just I love the state of being en route, so to speak. Like, it's one of the reasons I like cycling. When you're on a bicycle, you're just moving through space, and it's everything sort of, on the one hand, you're moving quickly. On the other hand, it feels like everything is slowing down. When you travel, you are away from all the trappings of your day-to-day existence. And so it's a funny contradiction, because what I really like about traveling is not that the place is different, but that I can be different. So because I'm far away from my daily life, you sort of shed all of those things that normally sort of define you the day before, your mood or what you're doing, what you're working on, or things like that. When you're traveling, you're sort of freed to kind of imagine yourself as a different person. And so in that sense, it is absolutely wonderful for writers, because you not only meet lots of new and different people that can help kind of populate your novels in one form or another, or inspire them, but you also get to imagine yourself a little bit differently, which lets you gain insight into possible, new main characters.
Kind of sounds like traveling is an analogy or comparable to writing. You're traveling when you're writing. You're traveling to somebody else. You are somebody else.
Absolutely. I often describe writing a novel as going on its own sort of adventure, and for me, it's at its best when I feel like I'm sort of living the story. Sorry, I saw someone mention.
I saw that comment. I'm sorry, I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing at the comment. It says Jen lived in BC. I didn't think she was that old. Cute, Chris.
Wow.
Cute.
See, in Tennessee, when you show up like that, we look at you and go, "You ain't from around here, are you?"
Goodness. Yeah.
He knows. He hasn't been taught not to comment on a woman's weight, or it's not weight. I mean age.
Age. Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
I'm slowly learning not to comment on anything, and then you're usually much safer.
This is true. This is true.
Yep.
And then, of course, the problem is, because we're all, learning how often it's inappropriate to comment on things, is then someone will do something and they really kind of want people to notice. They've put some effort into their appearance in one form or another, or they've done something, and everyone sort of,
nobody notices.
Yeah. Everyone notices, they just don't say it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when you're a kid and you get new running shoes, everybody comments on them, and you can just say, "Hey, look at my new shoes." When you're a grown-up and you're an adult and you get your hair done, it's kind of inappropriate to go, "Hey, look at my new hair." You have to just sort of wait, and then nobody comments, and then you feel like, oh.
Yep. And then the husband doesn't comment, and the next thing you know, he's getting
sleeping on the couch in the doghouse.
Yeah.
Before we get sidetracked, though, we had a question. Glenn and I were discussing. You're adamantly denying this label or title of Renaissance man in hopes that people will start calling you that. Have you succeeded?
Yes, because the number of times a reviewer will refer to me as sort of a Renaissance man or polymath or things like that is wonderful and undeserved. And I'm convinced it partly comes from the reverse psychology of saying in my bio that I resist the label of Renaissance man. It's funny. Because I've always felt like I just didn't really qualify. Like, I've done lots of different things and I do lots of different things, but very few of those are things where I go, well, I'm good enough at it to say, yes, I am. I cycle. I'm not good. I don't think of myself as a cyclist. I fence. I don't think of myself as a fencer, even though it's something I've done for over many times over the years. So it's one of those weird things. It's also such an antiquated sort of identity. It comes from a period of time where there really was the notion of Renaissance man was, you had to have a sport, a fine art, a business interest,
specialty in something, and then generalist and everywhere else, right?
Well, or in fact, these different quadrants of your life, you had to be accomplished actually in each one. So, you had to either be a good musician or a good painter or a good sculptor or a good something. And then you had to either be, a good football player or a good fencer or a good, something like that. Like, you had to sort of attain status in all of them. It's very much a kind of a noble or noblest idea, if you will. In other words, something the wealthy classes sort of took on as if it sort of justified their otherwise freewheeling lifestyles.
They had to have something to do. They didn't have chores.
Exactly, exactly. It's funny,
Yeah.
you know, I was once asked to write the cutscene scripts for a video game. And I was working on this video game, and it was one of these things. It was a very, very big game. Like, I think it had 1 billion user accounts or something. It was like these serious numbers. And this was an offshoot game from it, and it was one of these free to play things. And they were telling me, like, no, we have a substantial user base that spends more than $10,000 a month playing this video game. You know, just buying little things inside the game, you know, buying money inside the game and things like that. And I always thought, my goodness, like this is what the truly like the kids of the insanely rich are doing instead of buying yachts.
They're buying like
just all
virtual
this,
stuff.
yeah, they're buying virtual yachts because then they get the status and they don't actually have to go out on the water.
Yeah, I know. I had the argument with my son about, he's like, I want to buy Roblox or Robux or something. I can't even remember what they say. It's like, I am not spending real money on fake money.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you know, it's funny because, you know, one of the things that I always find a struggle in writing fantasy novels is you have to, a lot of those sort of strange trappings you actually have to create. Like when I was writing Our Lady of Blades, I had to ask myself, you know, because Tristia, the country in which the Greatcoat series and the Court of Shadows series is set, is one in which there's these 9 different duchies, but they're almost like different city states. Like they're so proudly independent from one another. And so they each have their own currency. And so I had to sort of develop a currency that was built around gemstones, because that, you know, so referring to opal shards or emerald carats, or, you know, and how these things would work. And so, you know, it's interesting because on the one hand, I'll sometimes sort of dismiss video games with all of these sort of built-in in-game currencies, but in fact, as a fantasy author, it's something you have to think about, because you have to build a kind of a fleshed out world that makes sense. Even small terms, you know, like one of the things that will turn some fantasy editors off is if they see a manuscript where someone's talking about gold pieces or silver pieces, you know, like, because it's so obviously Dungeons and Dragons, you know, inspired or taken from. And even when I was writing Play of Shadows, because it's set in a city where, you know, they really prize theater and the arts, and so, you know, they would refer to copper tears and silver grins and gold jubilance, you know. So I took sort of the emotional states that we associate sometimes with the arts, and used that as the slang around currency, the notion of, you know, copper tears and silver grins. So sometimes it's fun to play with.
Yeah. And then you can invent your own names for things too. Like, I love to, I go to this website, it's called fantasygenerator.com.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of so they've got a lot of things you can do, like, you know, random names for like fantasy elves or vampires or whatever. But you can also do random names for like magical spells or cities, or I haven't looked, but I'm sure they have some for like currency.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they do. You know, the thing for me is, when I'm writing a fantasy novel, I don't build the world out as if it's a giant atlas. Like I don't spend weeks drawing maps and making, you know, every different town and things like that, because that's more, I think of as a sort of a dungeon master activity, you know, when you're creating an open world, right? But a novel for me is not an open world. I'm not just creating a setting so that any novel can be written in it. I'm creating a setting that reflects the themes and the underlying tensions of the novel. And so for me, I will often need to ground things. And so, of course, sometimes it works. You know, sometimes you can, you know, one character's name or the name of a city or something like that. It can almost be anything. But I will very often choose a couple of language roots, for example. You know, so in the Greatcoats series, the language roots were English, French, Spanish, and Italian. And occasionally there would be some Scandinavian roots in there. And then I would sort of build the words from those roots, and that allows you to sort of find a cohesion that is sometimes very helpful, and it's often necessary because, for example, like with Our Lady of Blades, it's such a kind of, it's the most intricate and complicated novel I've ever written. You know, it has all these different kinds of judicial duels. There's a legal system built around dueling. And, you know, so you have sentencing duels where the number of cuts that your champion gets on the prosecutor's champion is you know, each cut takes a year off your sentence if you've been sentenced, you know, but each cut that your champion takes or you take in the sword fight adds a year. So you can start with a 10-year sentence, and at the end of the duel, you're scot-free, or at the end of the sentence, you're going to jail for 30 years. And so all of those things require a kind of an internal cohesion in terms of how they work and how one sort of symbol or motif relates to another. So in the case of Our Lady Blades, I mentioned already, there's the motif of gemstones because they're so highly prized, but also because it's quite a sort of noble and vain culture in which it's set. There's a lot of posturing, there's a lot of intrigues, there's a lot of, you know, houses of different status. And so one of the motifs was around birds. Each house has its sort of house bird. So one of the families, the family that we sort of follow and root for, is the Vauquelin family, and their bird is the hummingbird. Their enemies is a house called Inguero, whose symbol is the falcon. And so you know, there's hubris with the owls and all of these different things. And so I need those motifs to transcend just one element. So for example, when they talk about the highest of the noble houses, they're referred to as the ascendant houses. You know, birds fly, they go into the sky, right? When they talk about a house beneath an ascendant house, they're referred to as a house, like a rising house is called a house beneath the wing of. So whichever house is their patron. So House Thierrin was a house beneath the wing of House Vauquelin. And so the more of that kind of consistency and coherency you can create in a fantasy world, the less the reader has to kind of memorize all the details. You know, I loved Game of Thrones. I loved the books before the TV show came out. I loved the first few seasons of the TV show. But you really had to immerse yourself in those books just to memorize all of the different houses and lineages and names and symbols, and you know, and it's okay if you're really lucky and you hit that level of success where people are reading these 300,000 word books, these door stoppers, and they're willing to sit there with notepads marking or remembering every different house and name. It's one of the reasons people always criticize George R. R. Martin because he hasn't finished the last book, and because it took him so long to write each of the other ones. And he is rightfully, it's a lot of words, but also he has to go back and find the names of every one of more than 1,000 characters and all of their houses and lineages and history. And so I find one of the things that can make it easier on the reader is when you have that sort of coherency of language, of motifs, of things like that, so that it's almost as if, you know, each time you introduce a new term or concept in the fantasy novel, after the first couple of chapters, the reader should almost go, oh, of course that's what it's called. It would have to be called that, right? Because they have a sense of the thread that's uniting all of it. And that's part of the challenge of writing a really intricate or you know, complex fantasy world. But it's also one of the absolute joys when you finally find that perfect motif or sigil or word. It feels like you're building something that has its own internal durability.
And it's people seldom sit down and read the entire book, so they'll usually read a couple chapters and then they'll close it, put it away. Maybe they come back to it another day or two later, and so they have to, you know, it has to be memorable enough that they remember it and they don't have to go and reread the chapters before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's that thing where you have to almost, when you've written the draft of a manuscript, you have to sort of look at it and almost be able to pick up any chapter and go, could I just start here? And is everything so coherent that even though I haven't read the chapter where this character is introduced, as soon as I see them on the page, I get a sense of, you know, the text is giving me a sense of who they are. that is a reminder to people who've read things before, but for someone who first picks it up, again, even if they've never seen the character before or the city before, or in the case of, the Court of Blades, that particular court where all these judicial duels take place, they would be able to almost immediately start to get a sense of how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Couple questions. Jen, if you don't care. No.
Oh, Glenn, you're still here.
Yeah. No. Growing up, did you read any children's books or comic books, or did you have anything that was your favorite type of read?
I read a lot of comic books when I was a kid. I had a weird introduction to language as a kid because I was born in Quebec. My father was French, my mother was British, but we spoke English at home. So my first spoken language was French. Was English, but my first schooling was in French. So I was sent to grade 1. I never went to kindergarten. Grade 1 French school. Didn't know a word of French. So I was just a kid sitting there in a room not knowing. And the funny thing was, and I didn't know how to read in anything, in English, or French. So it was absolutely traumatizing for the first few days. But the weird thing is when you're that little, you pick up language so fast that within, I think a week, I was already understanding French.
Oh. Cat bit the cable again.
Oh, those belligerent cats. Darn it.
His cats are belligerent, so.
Well, we saw the cat in there, so we have to connect it to this drama.
I'm sure it was.
He's back. We're blaming your cat.
Oh, no, it's okay. Just to finish answering Glenn's question, yeah, because my first spoken language was English, suddenly being immersed in French school was traumatizing. But then I learned how to read in French before I knew how to read in English. And I had these comics at home, English comics. And I remember literally I remember the panels of the comic book where I suddenly realized I could read it, because I never actually learned to read in English, even though obviously I'm an English speaker. So I never went through the process of being taught to read in English. I learned to read in French, but then suddenly, of course, same alphabet, same lots of things, it translated over. So comics were very important to me when I was young. And then really fantasy, a friend of mine in high school, got me deep into fantasy. He gave me a book. In fact, I've got the 3 most important books kind of in my development, right always by my desk, and the original copies. So the first was a book called Jerrig by Stephen Bruce, which was the first time I'd read a fantasy novel that wasn't full of people talking in these and thous as if everything was, some old sword and sandals movie. And he had the main character, Vlad Taltosh, he's a kind of a minor gang lord with a sword. And he has a familiar, which is a small dragon that's called a Jerrig, who refers to him as boss all the time, which I just loved so much. The idea of a familiar that always refers to the person they're attuned to as boss. Should I go over here, boss? Should I do this, boss? You're getting in trouble, boss. I adored that. In fact, so when I was writing Spellslinger, I desperately wanted Kellen, the main character of that series, not to have a familiar. He has a business partner. So Rikus would never let anyone call him boss. And Rikus is this murderous, thieving squirrel cat who refuses to be Kellen's familiar, but instead makes a deal with him. If you help me on my heists, I'll help you with some of your human crap. And so that was always fun. But another one was Dragon Song by Anne McCaffrey, which was her first sort of children's novel set in her world of dragons. And I still love this book. I can still sit down and read this book. And the third was Bard by Keith Taylor, which is the book that kind of defined a huge amount of my life. I was 16. I was on a camping trip. I'm terrible at camping. I brought a leather jacket for a coat, which is a really bad thing to wear as outerwear in a temperate rainforest. And I was waiting for a ferry to take me to the next island, and I was 4 hours. I was, depending on how you look at it, 4 hours early or 10 minutes late. And so I was stuck there, and they had, they used to have those racks, those rotating racks of pocketbooks, and this one had this fantasy novel by an Australian writer named Keith Taylor called Bard, about this guy who travels the world swinging a sword, singing songs, going on adventures, and telling stories. And I went, and it just changed me. I went, that's it. That's the life I want. When you're 16, you're really often struggling with, who am I going to be? What do I want to be? And I was just like, that's it. I want to be a bard. But of course, there's not a lot of jobs on monster.com or whatever, or LinkedIn for bards. But that's why, going back to the very first thing we talked about, that's why I ended up having a career that spanned being a musician, being an actor, doing archaeology, traveling all the time, all those things, and ultimately becoming a novelist and telling stories. I got to finally become a bard in the aggregate.
Sounds as though you did it well, though. So
it's been a pretty fun ride.
Yeah. Well, before we let you get out of here, we want to get to the question. Have you ever had any paranormal experiences, or have your cats ever seen Bigfoot? Or?
Well, I'm fairly sure my cats are demons, but so here's the funny thing about me and the paranormal. So I promise, I'm fairly confident I will be the only one of your guests who gives this answer, which is, so I haven't had any actual, what I would say, paranormal experiences. But when I was 19, my best friend at the time and I decided to create a company that was called Cognitive Explorations to investigate paranormal events. And we got a business license. Man, the city of Burnaby really put us through the ringer before giving us a business license to be paranormal investigators. But we literally had a business license from the city of Burnaby that said paranormal investigators on it, despite not knowing a lot of the things we probably needed to know. And in fact, we got asked by, there was a TV station out here, there's an old closed down psychiatric care facility called Riverview, where there were rumors of there being ghosts and stuff. And so they had us and a TV crew go in there to look for ghosts. And it was absolutely terrifying, because it looked terrifying on the inside. And there was all these weird things like dead pigeons everywhere, because if they got in through a window and they didn't get out, they would just die. So there's all of that there. And then these weird signs of some human habitation. And of course, what it was a former patient. And in fact, former patients would sometimes, because when people close down a psychiatric facility, they don't always open a new one. So they were breaking back in because it was the place that they knew, and they had some sense of it belonging to them, a sense of safety. And so that was the closest I've gotten to anything paranormal. But I did, for about a year, have business cards that said paranormal investigator, cognitive explorations.
You didn't add that to your list of jobs.
Yeah,
I did not. I did not. The best thing about it is, because it was so long ago, there is no video evidence of it. So I never really have to worry about that footage of me walking around with a high sensitivity tape recorder and an infrared camera in a former psychiatric facility.
Somebody has the beta.
Somebody does. Somebody took that video.
Let's
Sebastian,
hope they're not listening to this show.
We only got 2 listeners, so you're okay. Sebastian, tell everybody where they can find you. And remember, we have an international audience where our Australian listeners can find your stuff as well.
Sure. Well, so luckily my books are in all the sort of the major bookstores. So in Canada, you can find them in you should always go to your local indie bookstore first, but in Chapters Indigo, in the US, they're in the Barnes and Noble, in the UK in Waterstones. Australia has tons of really outstanding bookstores, and I know that the series have often been quite popular there. And then of course, Amazon and the big e-tailers. All my books are available in hardback, in paperback, ebook, audio. The audiobooks are absolutely stellar. I've been so lucky to have Joe Jameson and Kristen Atherton as the narrators of all my different books. They are absolutely fabulous actors. One of my great pleasures is after my book comes out is getting to listen to the audiobook and having my story told back to me, but with all of great actors' interpretations of that story on top of it. So I'm super easy to find there. My website is www.decastell.com. That's DECASTELL. You can find out everything you want about all my books in all the different languages there. And there's a contact page. I answer every single email, unless it is an email promising me millions of dollars in exchange for a $5,000 deposit to a Nigerian bank account. Not that I don't love the people of Nigeria, but they're princes. I don't know. They have a lot of them, it
You
seems.
seem a bit shady.
Yeah.
They're all broke and they need assistance.
That's
Yeah,
right.
but they have $1 million that they're willing to send you if you just lend them $5,000 first. But no, I respond to all the emails, and I love hearing from readers and people like that. So, and writers. So feel free to get in touch.
Okay. And for anybody listening, this will be in the show notes probably tomorrow. So not tonight, but I have it all listed in the show notes. Sebastian, when will your book be out, by the way?
It has just it has come out. It came out on May 18th. It's Our Lady of Blades. It's a swashbuckling fantasy. It's a bit of an homage in its own way to the Count of Monte Cristo. So if you want to feel smart, but reading Dumas's 1,000-page Count of Monte Cristo is too much for you, you can read my 500-page swashbuckling fantasy novel that has some parallels, although it's obviously a different story. But it's a book that I'm tremendously proud of. It's taken me such a long time to get it just right. It's the only book I've ever written where I did 28 drafts. By contrast, The Malevolent Seven had 2. It had the initial draft and then an edit pass, and then it was out into the world. So I really hope people will give it a try, and I hope that they enjoy it. And again, thanks so much to the two of you for having me on the show. It's a pleasure.
You're more than
Always.
welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Come back and see us, okay? I told you Jen was the tough one, so.
Yes, totally.
She was
tough.
tough. She was
I
tough but
grilled
fair.
you. Yes.
I know, and I was so thrown off because of course we met in person before this, as you mentioned, and because it's a different context, I was I didn't place the connection until you said so.
Yep.
So yeah, and we can blame it all on Mickey Mickelson of Creative Edge
There you go.
Publicity Art.
That's
Yeah.
right.
There
we,
you
well,
go.
we all owe a thanks to him for getting us in contact. So all
Yeah.
three of us. So
Yeah.
Sebastian, have a great night. We will talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
It goes too quick. We say that every week.
Mhm. There were so many more questions that I wanted to ask, and I didn't get a chance to. I'm
Sometimes
sorry, I
wonder if we
asked
shouldn't
everything.
do- No, you did fine. I sometimes wonder if we shouldn't just like go 2 hours with each guest. So
Some guess yes. Yeah, I think so.
I think we could.
Some they don't share as much. They don't talk as much. And it's
true.
harder. You got to give them questions that are open-ended and stuff. But
That's right.
Sebastian was great. He talked. It was amazing. I love the stories that he's telling and his analogies, and they're great. So our next guest, I'm hoping they'll be just as great.
That's right. Everybody hang on. WRFN, WZQR, and Dare Talk Radio. Hang on. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting across Australia on Dare Media Group radio stations, this is the Sportcat Show, uncovering secret chapters, strange encounters,
and the occasional technical mishap.
And welcome back, everybody, to hour 2 of the Sportcat Show. As you know, every week we always have 2 outstanding guests, and this week we are blessed as well. We have Alan Warren. He's a TV expert, best-selling crime author. It's easy for me to say. And well, let's just bring him out here. Hello, Alan. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing good. How are you? I'm looking for the second outstanding guest. I saw Sebastian.
It's Jen. We just like to pump her up like that.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because I'm just here doing
I hope
the
so.
maid work here. I'm not.
So, Sebastian, tell us a little bit about yourself. Well, a little. You got a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, well, I'm Sebastian de Castell, and
Oh, that's right. Sure. I'm sitting here looking at. Good God,
boy,
didn't move my
Sebastian lost
screen.
his hair. What
Yeah,
happened?
well, there we go. You're fired, Glenn.
Yeah,
Where's your cats? Where's your cats?
Let me
Yeah.
move to the second screen. So tell us
there. See,
about
I'm,
yourself, Alan.
I'm
Or
the
you can
one
tell us about Sebastian too, if you want.
Yeah,
So-
I can be him. Yeah, why not?
I did this whole 1 hour show one night talking to an author about his book about dogs, and there wasn't a damn book in his dog in his
There
book.
was a dog in the title, but it wasn't about that.
Yeah,
And it was stuck in my head that there was a dog in his book.
that was-
That's why there's two of us.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
deep,
she's the brains.
deep research there. There must have been a dog.
There was a dog in the title.
It was on the cover, and no. Okay.
Comes from
Anyhow, well, I did do homework, but apparently
Well,
I got sidetracked by a dog.
Yeah, it's good to have dogs.
So,
And you know what? Speaking of dogs, you're a dog guy. Actually, you're what do you call it? When you take in the older dogs, foster.
Yeah, I'm a dog foster guy. I have been for about 20 years and taken in older dogs, medium small dogs, no big dogs, just the small ones. And
It's so rewarding.
actually it
It
is.
is.
It's my go-to because I'm completely insane and I work too much, and they're always the ones that kind of bring me back to reality. Plus they do everything with me, so I'm working and I do stuff, and then they kind of look at me like, that's enough, and then so I can go out, walk, and come back, and they keep me. Yeah, well, yeah.
Yep, got one right over there looking at me, going,
Yeah.
"Hey."
It's amazing how much they can speak to us without actually speaking. My dog will sit next to me if I've been on the computer too long, and she goes,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, fine, I'll get off. I'll go do
That's-
something else.
Yeah, but they're good. They're good. I think a lot too when I'm walking with them, so it's good. It's good. It's good for me all the way around. It's the favorite part of the day usually. Sorry, you're
That's
not. They are.
Clears your mind. No, you're good. Is that how it clears your mind? Because some of the topics in your stuff are really deep and heavy.
I think that in a way it does, but what I find that it does is I think about things in a different when I'm out with them, it becomes clearer. I don't know how to explain that. I sort of see things from a different point of view. I see it almost like a reader. It sounds weird, but you're walking and you're sort of thinking about the dialogue and how people talk and what's going on between them. And that's why it's sort of a different perspective.
My chat is giving me grief here. Sorry.
Oh, good.
Chris asks if he wants to know if he could ask Alan what Sebastian's favorite lightsaber duel was. Oh, jeez.
Oh, geez, I forgot.
There you go.
Yeah.
We were talking about dogs, and real quick, it's come to mind when you talk about clearing heads. I don't know what kind of music you listen to, but there's an old country song by Tom T. Hall, "Old Dogs and Children in Watermelon Wine." Have you ever heard that by any chance?
I don't think I have.
I haven't heard it.
You really need to, at least one, because you were talking pretty much that metaphor like that. And he's lost his dog, and he's sitting in a pub, and he's sitting down and he's upset. And this old guy comes up to him and said, "Let me tell you about something."
Yeah. Let me tell you about a dog named Sue. No, I can't tell you. It's great. No, I listen to all sorts of music, but I don't remember that song. But you know,
I was
It's an oldie, so
yeah.
Yeah, it's an oldie. I'm gonna have to look it up. I've written it down. I'm like, I'm gonna go check that out. I was gonna say, aside from you writing and publishing 38 true crime novels, nonfiction, you also are a producer of a radio show, House of Mystery, which I've been a guest on a couple times now. So over the years.
Yeah, you're that real mean guest.
I know.
Holy
I'm
cow.
sorry.
Vicious. Talk about a boy. Holy cow.
it's from a guy who
my mom voice
Jim
came
Jones
out.
Yeah, she's everything but a whip. I'll tell you, it was wild. No, I've been doing the House of Mystery now. We're in our year 16. So
Wow.
yeah.
What got you started?
I don't know if in what, I don't know. I think it just one thing led to another. Like if you would have asked me 20 years ago, I would have never told you what I was doing now. Like I would never been able to guess. It sort of happened. One thing led to another. In fact, I was doing makeup in the makeup counter. This is weird. At a department store in Portland, Oregon, and anyway, so I got into it that way because we ended up doing makeup for people on the News 6 TV channel there, and then that got me behind scenes, and I started doing some producing, and then all of a sudden I was producing a show on radio, and then I got to do an interview with someone that didn't want to be on with the show host, so they threw me out there as producer, and it went okay, and then I got an offer to do a job. I got a couple of them to do my own show, and I thought, well, this is stupid. I don't know what I'm doing. and so I took it and I ended up doing that, and it just all kind of went from there. And after a couple of failed shows, I got the House of Mystery, and it seemed to have taken off. And I'm quite lucky. I'm fortunate,
So what came first, the podcast or the writing? Or sorry, the radio and the writing. Sorry.
Well, I'd say the radio first. I was never a writer, and just like with radio, I'm not a pro, so I'm not a good writer. I'm a terrible writer. Don't buy my books.
That's why they have editors.
No, the thing is, what I mean was, I'm not the guy sitting there thinking of literature and writing and all this stuff. It wasn't just like that. And just doing the show, a magazine actually approached me and asked me if I would do some articles on some of the cases that we were covering. And I said, well, I'm not a good writer. And I said, don't worry about that. Just do it and we'll fix it and all that. So I started doing that. And so I was doing those for a while. And Serial Killer magazine, I did a couple for them. Isn't that crazy? And then a publisher, a real publisher, approached me and said, would you like to do some writing? And I said, no. And they said, well, we're doing a 22 book series. They're small, like novellas, only 25,000 words each. And we'd like you to do that on a certain character. And so they talked me into it, and I did that on 4 short reads for them. And 1 took off, and then they asked me to do a full book, and all of a sudden that was it. I just kept going. I think you do it while you can, because tomorrow they'll forget you and they'll never ask you again. Isn't that, boy, I'm rather negative today.
Well, what brought you to the true crime? Was it the fact that the radio brought you there, or were you always interested with it?
Well, I was always slightly interested in it, but I kind of do things from a different perspective. I look at it as a historical point. I don't so I start out, like, for instance, with Charles Manson book. It wasn't about Charles Manson totally. What it was I picture myself being a 20-year-old in San Francisco in 1965. And then I decide, okay, where would I work? How much money would I make? What kind of place would I afford? How would I get to work? And what's my lifestyle? So I get up in the morning. Do I have a coffee maker? Like, we take things for granted, but what do I actually have in my apartment? And I start building that character. And then I go through all the papers and all the different times. So what's going on in the city, and what's going on in the country, and what's going on in the world. And I kind of put it all together. So all of a sudden you have a whole 5-year kind of story based around a fake character. And then what I do is I bring in the reality of someone like Charles Manson, because I think that so many people, let's say you were born in 2000, you're 25, 26 years old. You're going to have no idea what Haight-Ashbury was like in the 60s, the hippies, even the Beatles and that stuff. Like, the whole feeling of what was going on. They were trying to land on the moon for the first time. We had the race riots. We had people shooting the president and the other candidate. And then there's so many things going on. The Black Panthers, you just put yourself in that life at that time. And so then that's what I do. So I lay that all out there so that someone like that would understand better and maybe understand more about why people act and react things, because back then there was all these 14, 15-year-old kids running to Haight-Ashbury trying to find peace and love. And there was also parents giving their kids away, like giving them to communes and taking off. And so if you're, like I said, if you're born in 2000, someone tells you that, you'd be like, why would they do that? And all this, it could be all mad. And you'd be thinking, this is stupid. It doesn't fit. So I really find I really take a historical situation and then bring in the kind of the theme in there. So it's a little different, and I'm not so gory in the books either. I like tell you what happens. Well, I tell you what happens, but I'm not detailed unless it's something you need to know, right? Like it's just a particular way that he had someone killed, why, and it's more factual that way. I don't sit there and talk about the temperature of the room and the blood dripping, and there's people that do that really well, but I'm not really, that's not my thing. So, and sometimes it hurts because sometimes those ones don't sell as well. If I was a little bit more graphic, some of those books would sell better, I think, but I'd rather do a really good story and have really good information that people can understand and really get it, and not be a narrator and say this is good and that's bad and direct people, but this is just what it is, so they understand it, and hopefully they can see what's good or bad within themselves, but not always.
Did you what kind of educational background did you study, like criminology or psychology, or did you just really deep dive into these the people that you were writing about?
Well, it's funny. I was going to school. I started in the theater program at college in New Westminster. And then I transferred into the music department for a crazy reason. And so I ended up in music, and I went right through, and then I ended up in Seattle at UW, and I got my master's in music, and my minor was criminology. So all of my minor courses through college were criminal courses. I was sitting there with cops, the guys with the mustaches, all, doing all the courses. And then I was in music the rest of the time. So it was just a minor, but it was more of an interest for me than, let's say, it wasn't as natural, let's say, as music was when I was taking that. So that was it.
What cases do you decide to write about? Like, is there a criteria?
Well, once you start doing this, people start sending you things, and you start hearing from people, or, I'm out in a store and someone will say, hey, have you heard about this case? Or have you heard about that? Why don't you write about this? And then so you take it and you start, so I can have 20 on my computer, and then I kind of start going through them and kind of go, for me, I want to be able, if it's a recent enough case that happened when we were alive, I want to be able to contact the people. So you get a hold of survivors or friends of or family. And if they don't want to do the book, or if they're not interested in a book being done, I shelve it. That's the first thing. If they are interested, then I go to the next level. So then you talk to the cops. You get the records. Maybe if doctors are involved, and medical teams, and court records and stuff like that. If that jumps on, and then it starts coming together. I always end up with about 5 cases going at the same time. Because you have to wait to get things done. Like to visit someone in prison or visit somebody, you have to apply and get approved, and then you have to contact them, set up the date. And so, there's some writers I know, and they'll wait, and they'll do one book every couple of years or 5 years even, because they have to wait so long to get everything. So while I'm waiting, I'm doing another book.
That makes sense.
I only have so much time. Well, I want to do it before I get unable to do it,
Do you rip them from the headlines? I mean, it seems as though there's one almost every day if you watch.
Yeah, I'm not really, and that doesn't interest me for the most part. It's usually something that comes from a person alive that's part of the case that wants it. Like I did the Murder Times 6, and that was, for instance, not too long ago. And that was particularly because the family wanted me to, because the murderer of 6 members of their family was going to be up for parole. And they wanted to do something, and they thought a book would help, which it did actually. We ended up getting 44,000 signatures, and he got denied. So there was a reason, and there's all that stuff like that. Other than that, I look for a weird twist, something unusual, in a way that where you can learn something, like in Canada, like where the justice, I had the vampire killer, right? Guy, he killed 5, well, 4 he was convicted of, but 5 women, and he would drink their blood. That was vampire. He got put away for life. Okay. But what drew me to that case was in Canada, the corrections likes to try and socialize and make their criminals a better person, rehabilitate. And part of that would be, let's say, if you were a person that did something, they would help promote that. Like we were doing something younger. This vampire killer was an artist and drawer and was really into art. And so they thought, well, to help him out, they would take him to a museum. Now, only if you're a good prisoner, right? If you're good, you have to have a good record and all that. And they would take you out to a museum for a day, and you'd get to see some art, and they'd it's their way of rehabilitating. And so I found it interesting because on the second visit, he had to go to the bathroom, and the guards let him go. And he never came back. And on him, he had an American Express card hidden somewhere, or they didn't search him. And I thought, well, so all of a sudden he's down in St. Catharines in Montreal, getting a hotel and buying all new clothes and going out on this American Express card. And so for me, my idea is, well, how come American Express would give a lifelong prisoner a card? So I had to contact them and ask them that question. And of course, they said they'd get back to me, and they never did, because how could you answer that, right? And just see that scenario, I thought was funny. Just that whole set, and how in the Canadian criminals, they're almost too nice, and the American justice is almost too mean, like they're complete opposite. Yes. And it really both should be somewhere in the middle, somewhere just kind of in the middle rather than either extreme. So things like that will grab my attention. I thought, this is cool. Let's find out about this. And then I get into it that way. So it's usually a twist to it.
Do you find that your research?
I'm sorry, I just want to know if they caught that guy, or did he get?
He did actually 3 days later, and that was even weirder, because he was out because he would his vampire tendencies only happened when he was getting intimate with a woman. He couldn't be aroused without the taste of blood on his mouth. Okay, so he would bite them and start drawing blood when he wanted. So the reason is because now, so he was out with a girl that night that they caught up with him by the American Express card, and they caught him in a pub with a girl he started kind of hanging with. I'd say dating, but it was only a couple of days. And so it was just really bizarre, because they raid, the bar, and they get him and the girl. She's still not okay years later. Do you know what I mean? Like when she found out that she was hanging with the vampire killer, and that she probably would have been the next victim, and it really messed with her. But that was, because so that was a real interesting thing about it. So they did catch him, but it was a couple days later.
Okay, go ahead, Jen. Sorry, I wouldn't sleep if I didn't know.
He's down outside your door. I see him in the back room right there.
Good news.
Sorry.
Yeah. There he is. Hey.
She is not going to sleep at all tonight.
No. I can.
I'll just. Yeah, the dog's going to sleep in the room with me and my husband, and I have a 1-foot mag light flashlight.
It's just all ready for the action here, Yeah. No,
I used to live alone. I was prepared.
You were ready.
Yeah. I was going to ask that, with all your research into all your different stories and the different cases that you write about and stuff, does it change your view on humanity?
At times, I think that you know, at different times in my life, it has, but as of recent, you know, the way people, you know, the last 10 years, the way people behave right now in public and the way they treat each other in general, I've lost more faith in humanity from that than I do from the killers. Because I think in the sense of these killers have been with us forever. You know, whatever you call them in whatever generation or time period, there's people that murder and have that, and it is a small percentage. It's not as big as it makes it sound on TV. It's not like you have to worry. There's, you know, 300, let's say, in the States of 400 million people, right? It's pretty small, but it's still scary, you know. And but the way I see masses treat each other in the last 10 years publicly, I've lost more faith in that, and the way people behaved even over COVID. Whatever stance people take, it doesn't matter. It's just the way people treated each other. It's the way they behaved. Were just not like grown-ups, like adults. And I kind of thought we could build off of what our older generation, our parents and grandparents, had worked so hard to give us, and we would go further than that. But it's sort of, so that's more disappointing to me than Ted Bundy. You know, Ted Bundy's one of those rarities that you get, and you kind of, I don't want to say you should expect it, but in essence we should, because we do have that around us. It's pretty small in the big picture, but I you know, so the reason I'm kind of more depressed about humanity is what I see on the internet. It's terrible. Turn on TikTok and, you know, be depressed.
Yeah,
I agree. I mean, one thing, I'm by profession a paramedic, and I've seen a lot of the dark stuff that people do. And one thing that always amazes me, people don't realize that, especially in the inner cities, it's almost a war zone. It's just like they get their little blinders on. And I've talked to people who've just done heinous things, and they're like, it's no big deal.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy when you go meet someone in prison too, and they're away for murder. You know, 6, 7 people, and you're talking to them, and that's one of the craziest things, because you'll meet someone like that. You're sitting there with them, and then you start thinking in your mind, this guy is common. Not that he's a killer, but just the way he acts, the way he presents himself, the way he is. He reminds me of someone I'd see at the grocery store, or in the mall.
Exactly.
There's nothing, and in fact, a lot of them, they're not like Ted Bundy, or they're not like this Hannibal the cannibal. They're not all this super smart and talking all, you know, and they have all the charisma and stuff. That's not how, they're just normal, average people, you know, everything about them except for what they did. And it's not like it's portrayed. We always see the same 5 people that are killers that are made to look like amazing people, and it's just not. It's not true. There's a few, but really the majority of them are just like everybody else. They have the things they like and don't like and all that stuff like that. You know, I got letters. I talked with the Grinder serial killer out of London that killed 5, and he sends Star Wars pictures, and he's like a kid. He's in his 40s, but you know, he's just like nothing special. And I don't mean that in that way. I just mean there's nothing like, it's not Hannibal. It's not like this great letters of perfect writing and super talking. And it's just, hey, I can't wait for the new Star Wars movie. And it's like, and he draws pictures, and you think, this guy's a serial killer. But that's how most of them are. You would never pick them out of a crowd in your neighborhood. So now she's really going to be scared.
No, I try to explain that to my sons, you know, the same thing, and say, oh, if I meet a bad guy, I'm going to run away, or I'm going to fight him, or whatever. And I was like, dude, you don't know what a bad guy is, because they look like everybody else. You can't tell. But we grew up with cartoons where the bad guys look like bad guys, and
They
You
dress
know?
them a certain way and they give them
Yeah.
certain words to say. And you know, there's always some of that, but my God, most of it, these
Yeah.
serial killers, these people that are killing and doing stuff, nah. In fact, most of them you'd think were soft-spoken and nice guys until you found out what they did, which is actually, that's kind of scarier.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know, could be the guy you're sitting with at the interview booth.
Never know. Well, they say everybody's going to meet at least two in their life. A murderer, and that's almost a serial killer, but a murderer. Paramedic. I've got triple or quadruple that. So.
I've worked in hospital. I've met many people. I'm sure some of them were.
Yeah. And I bet as a paramedic, you could probably write a book about some of the stories.
You know, Jen's tried to talk me into that a couple times.
You probably could.
We've exchanged some stories here and there, you know, and he sees the front lines. I get them after the fact.
Well, you know, Alan, to tell you, the first murderer I met, I was a paramedic, and I was right out of paramedic school, downtown Knoxville, Tennessee, rural area, Sunday morning on the church steps. I pick up this guy. He's too drunk to be there. And that's what the police told me. Like, okay, well, we'll run him down the bridge, literally down the bridge. Remember the bridge to Baptist Hospital. So I got him in the back, and I'm just, you know, whatever. He's drunk, and he wakes up and he looks at me and goes, "Hey, was there a guy sitting next to me?" I'm like, "No, you were alone on the steps. You fell and hit your head, and the cops called." He goes, "Huh, I'm pretty sure I killed him." I stopped and turned and I was like, "Excuse me?"
Yeah.
Asked the police to look at the bottom of the bridge. I'm pretty sure I stabbed him and threw him off the bridge. And I'm like, stop talking right now, because I'm going to be in court. That was my very first thought. Stop talking.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay. And so you take a total. I'm now sitting behind him, got the metal clipboard. I'm prepared. And and he's a skinny little older guy. Yeah. And I called dispatch and I said, hey, it's a funny thing. And I'm thinking he's probably drunk. He made this up. And it comes back and goes, KPD is going to be behind you in just a minute. They did find somebody at the bottom of the bridge. I'm like, oh.
Well, there you go.
You sit right there.
You'll need an ambulance for that one?
Yeah.
The whole shift doing paperwork. I had one patient, whole shift doing paperwork and talking to police.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You're like, darn it, I should wear headphones.
Yeah.
I did. I told him, stop talking. Stop talking.
Never works.
No, because literally they want to talk about it then. It's
well, yeah. They're so drunk they don't even remember that they're talking about it, maybe.
Well, even the sober ones, the kids, they just want to start telling you about it. I'm like, no, I don't want to know. I was telling Jen before the show, as we would have rookie EMTs and paramedics, and they'd want to go in on these gory calls. And I'm like, no, you don't. You're going to be forced to in your career. Don't volunteer for because you can't unsee what you see.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You step forward and that's it. You know, and it's true. I was doing another Canadian case, and actually I was doing a separate thing, but I had to do this because he was part of another case. You know that, what was his name? You might know, Jam. He was a model and he was, trying to be popular, and he took home some guy and cut him up and filmed it, and then he put it on.
Why would I know about that?
Well, because I thought maybe you'd be into that, you know. Well, you're from Canada, aren't you, or no?
I am.
Yeah,
big place up here.
No, but the Canadian case, how many of those cases like that?
You know what? I've probably heard about it, but I try really hard not to watch the news because it's just depressing.
Well,
I'm sorry.
The only reason I bring that is because this guy filmed it all, then he put it on YouTube, got over 300,000 views before the RCMP found out this is a real video. He had the guy tied down on a bed, looked like a hospital bed, and was cutting his arms and cutting, you know what I mean? It was just like really crazy stuff. And he's filming it.
Ban you for like costume or outfit malfunctions, and they're gonna let that on there? Although
well,
my husband did find some like naked yoga on YouTube. He's like, I can't believe this is on there. So
Yeah.
you never know, right?
Well, AI only finds so much, and I guess, but he got away with that, and that was just crazy. But that's the sort of stuff that's out there. But he was just like a little skinny guy, and it was just
Skinny ones you got to watch out for.
Those are the ones, because you think, oh, they can't do anything. Oh my God, they're the ones doing it.
They're like just one step below mama bears.
Yeah. Well, Hannibal the Cannibal, look at him. He's only 140 pounds, 5'4". That's just a little scrawny guy. But they've turned him into something amazing on the movies,
Yeah. He was really creepy on the movies.
Yeah, well, they turned him into a genius, Anthony Hopkins, and they made him really smart and charismatic. And this guy's just a little skinny guy, a little kid that got put in jail at 17, young, and nothing impressive in that way. You would just be like totally shocked at the real Hannibal. He's just a little teeny weeny kid, and it's like, wow, that's a different story. But you just like I said, it's not what it is on TV. That's all.
Yeah. I was going to ask you got a book that came out, or a book that's coming out on cults?
I do. The book on cults is, I've interviewed different people that have survived cults, major cults, like the family or Jonestown. There was a girl that was in Jonestown, and Luca Magnotta. Someone got it in your YouTube. That's the right guy. That's the guy. But
I was like deep into like college. I was pretty busy.
Well, why I was mentioning that, because I was doing on the case, and I got a lot of the police video, and I'm sitting there, and it's sitting on the computer thing, right? And I had someone in my family member come up and say, "What's this?" And I said, "No, you don't want to watch that. That's like really gross." And he watched it, and he's still not he still hasn't recovered.
He's still not right.
10 years later. No, 10 years later, it's like, because it's really kind of shocking to see. It's something you would just not expect, and it's real. And I think that's the, anyway. But back to the cult. So then, like, I would talk to someone that survived a cult, and when they were there, and what it was like to survive, live there, and how they're doing after the cult. So it's kind of like, it was Jonestown, Waco, Heaven's Gate, Nexium, a lot of the major cults. And that's what that is. It's just kind of a direct interview book. So you kind of see what people go through, and at the end of the cult, what goes on, that sort of thing. Yeah.
How does religion play into the cult? Sorry.
Good question.
Well, there's very little difference, and I know I'll get some evil letters for that, but there's very little difference between religion and a cult, because it all presents itself as we deal with this idea that, okay, we're alive, we're going to die. What happens to us when we die? And that's very deep with a lot of people and so some people grow up with a religion or learn a religion later, and they follow that, and that gives them the comfort to get through life. It gives them the answer, so to speak, without picking on any religion. But when there's people that have never found a particular mainstream religion, what they do is they end up falling into one of these. And it's usually more because they meet the leader directly, like David Koresh, or they meet whoever, Jim Jones. They meet someone, and they're obsessed, and they're taken in by that person for whatever reason. There's a lot of different variables. And so then they end up incorporating and becoming and living that way, thinking that they're on the right path. Their life usually gets better for a while, because all of a sudden they have family. They feel like they have love, support. They feel like they know where they're going. They've got their heaven answer. And so things are good, just like in a religion. But with these cults, what happens is they usually end up getting narrowed. They end up getting taken out of society, taken and put into a group. They go live somewhere and they become isolated, and then things turn bad. When it goes bad for the leader, it turns bad for everyone. There's not a lot of difference between really Charles Manson and David Koresh. It all ends up the same thing. Listen to me because I'm God, I'm God's son, I'm whatever entity I become. So you should be following and loving me because I love you. And then it just, and it becomes that scenario. And so there's not a lot of difference in that way. It's hard to determine. Scientology is a perfect example, man-made. There's a lot of believers out there, a lot of followers. But they're living lives. What do you say to someone that's in it? It's tough. It's really tough.
So the people that it's a two-part question. What is so what makes it so difficult for a person to leave, and for the survivors that do leave, or those people that do leave, what is it about them? What kind of inner strength or something that they had that they were able to survive and leave?
Well, for the most part, the survivor that leaves is usually forced into leaving for a particular reason. Like the Jonestown lady I talked to, she was, I think, 5 or 6 when the Kool-Aid thing was going on. And she ran away and ran 20 miles through the jungle to find help and get away. I mean, that's something that's, 5-year-old. That's just amazing. But it wasn't even about getting out of the cult for her. It was about surviving all this death going on. You're too young to understand really what's going on. You see something direct at 5, someone dying. They were shooting people and they were making them drink and dying and all that stuff. That's what you see as a 5-year-old. You don't think beyond that usually. You're not thinking, oh, this is that. This is, all this meaning and stuff. So you run. So someone like that, that's an amazing strength, just period. Others, like the guy I talked to out of Waco, he was there when they got attacked and when it all went down and all those people died, and he survived. But he's waiting for David Koresh to come back. David Koresh was the only one that told him the truth about God. So years later, he's sitting right now in his basement waiting for the return of Koresh. So he spent his whole life doing that.
Wow.
I don't know if that's courage. I don't know what that is. I'm not a doctor. I just play one. I couldn't, that's the other thing. You can't really examine these people. You can talk to them and do all that stuff, but they don't really get treatment. Like, we don't really know what's going on beyond the surface. We can guess and put a lot together, but we still don't really know. Why would he give up his whole life for this? But he really believed, and he really believes David Koresh is God's son, and he's going to return, and he's going to save them all and save the world. And okay. I'm not one to, like I said, I don't really judge and get into calling people names or get into fights with people. I just really want to hear what they believe and why, and kind of try to understand it. And that's as far as I can go. I don't know. I think, again, there's people that get caught up in different groups, and you kind of don't know why. Why would you do that? It's so easy for us sometimes because maybe we have our stuff together a little better. We got a little bit more home life, family, security. We feel more comfortable with life and whatever religion we choose, if we choose one. Like we're more stable in that way. A lot of these people that join these groups are not. They don't have any of that, and they're kind of lost. And it's not to put them down. It's just how their life went as a young person. So, I don't know. I really can't answer directly why someone, but it is a lot of strength to leave a cult, and now, and also back then they would isolate. You would have to go live with the cult, and you would be isolated, and that would be the problem with when you say how come they don't just leave, or they become isolated. They get cut off from whatever friends they do have and family. They get put into a place and they're almost protected or guarded, even though it doesn't seem like it, but they're in their own thing, almost like the Manson thing. And if too many people are coming to them, then they move. I don't know how this is going to go today with social media, and because back in the old days, if I wanted to follow David Koresh, I had to go to Waco. I have to go there and be with him. Today, I don't know that you need to do that. Why don't you guys start one and see what happens?
Well, what is the definition of a cult? Like, I know, there's a scientific definition, but what makes something, what is that turning point from organized religion to cult?
For me, it comes down to one thing. It comes down to freedom of choice, your freedom. So when you get to a group, whatever the group is, don't you join a book reading club or whatever it is, religious, whatever. When they start telling you what you can and can't do, to the point where you have no choice anymore. Like, you could go sit in a service and they could say, oh, you shouldn't do this, or don't drink alcohol. It's, it's sinful, whatever. And you could choose that at home. Go, yeah, I'm not going to drink. I don't need to drink. But when they actually have you in their control, where they actually just come into your house, your room, take away your alcohol. You know what I mean? It's when they actually don't give you the choice anymore. You live this way or else, whatever that is. And so it's just that freedom of choice. I mean, it's okay to live a certain way. If we all decide we want to live in Tennessee and we're only going to drink bourbon and eat whatever, like, we can have our own group. But if we dragged you in, like, JM, you have to come, and then we don't let you go, and we make you eat how we're going to eat and drink what we're going to drink and do that, that's the line. If you choose to do it and you think, this is great, I love this, that's great. But when they start forcing you and then taking away that choice, if you can't tell your friends, or you can't talk to your friends, you can't talk to your mother. No, she's a sinful person, or whatever. That's when you're in trouble.
So is there anything unique, or like, there's a lot of different, so David Koresh is not the first person who's created a cult. Is there a unique trait that creates a cult leader? Is there some personality type that they possess?
Well, there's a few theories on that, and to be honest, I think it's a way of, most of the ones that are successful, geez, it sounds like a business. Most of the ones that are successful are the ones that can, people will say charisma. I say it's a little bit more about attention. Like they see you, they know that you have fears or anxiety or things. They spend the time with you, and they give you what they know you need to join them.
So there's like a underlying social intelligence there.
Oh, totally. Like even Manson, he knew exactly, he could read people. Probably the strongest thing about him was being able to meet someone and know what their issues were. And this was not just kids. He did that. Look at it. He did that with the Beach Boys. He did that with a lot of people that were not what you'd call, a mild-mannered kid that looking for love. He was able to caress people. He could read you, and he could feel what he needed to do, and he did it. And he did it really well. He would just come in close, and all of a sudden you're best friends with this guy. and he just knew how to do that. And I think that's the, I don't want to say secret, but that's the thing that gets people in. They feel totally loved. They feel totally comfortable with that person, and they'll do, and they just want to be with them, around them, and it fulfills what they feel they're missing, you know.
Do you think loneliness plays a big part in how easily someone is drawn into a cult?
I think that's part of it. I used to think it was the direct cause, right? And then I start realizing, no, it's not always that. Some people that join these groups have great families, have great friends, and had not a bad life when it happened. There's something a little bit more to it. There's something about the emotional charge of, I'm bringing it back to life and death. I'm bringing it back to that sort of scenario. What happens? What do we lose? What do we gain when we die? And that's a very big part of it. There's this big hole, and some people it's much bigger than others, and some people are obsessed about it. Every day they're thinking about it, and then along comes someone to take that anxiety away, I guess, or that big question, that discomfort you live with all day long.
So that like fear of the unknown, and you need answers kind of thing.
Exactly. It's just that, they feel, all of a sudden they feel a relief. It's like the, wow, now, and then they feel like they're okay. It's going to be okay. And that's a big thing that people get out of religion. No matter what group you go to, there's that comfort of knowing that it's all the big picture. It's okay. This is, find something good out of the bad. So it's a way of doing that. And it's different for different people. That's why even like the big ones like this, like even Manson and some of these other big cult leaders, there was a lot of people that didn't join. There's a lot of people they worked on that they did the same things to, that it didn't work. And you don't really hear about them. They just kind of flow through. It's just the ones that are, stayed there and become a part of something, and then it turned evil or turned bad. That's where it's kind of, but there's a lot, they don't get everyone, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And there's, I don't know, I've heard this myth, and I don't know how much truth there is to it, but that only those people who are, like easily manipulated, but sometimes like, it doesn't matter your intelligence level. It doesn't matter, you can be manipulated and be, a member of Misa.
Yeah.
Intelligent kind of thing.
Totally, because we have two big components. We have our intelligence, like let's say the science or the intelligence, the thought of what we know, goes on. Then we have the emotion, the feelings, and they're two totally separate things, but they relate to each other, and one affects the other. And that's why some people can be very, I don't know, how do you say this? You could tell them that the sky is blue. You can tell them the sky is green. And it's just about their emotion that they'll follow, because they want to be right, or they want to have that person be right. That's their leader. So they go with their emotion rather than what they know. And then that's the follow part, because that's where it's not true. And that's where we lose. So I think our emotions lead us to a lot of things that we shouldn't be, we shouldn't really be doing or following. Like, we follow it because it gives us comfort, and that's not always the good thing.
It's true.
Yeah, I don't want to be depressing.
No, it's fun. It's like, I mean, it's part of our lives, right? We gotta be mindful of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, you could see it by the way people act and react to things. Like, like when, let's say, COVID hit, and people reacted in all different emotions, but that's it. It was emotions, not
fear was a big one.
Yeah, fear and scare, and then they hear this and hear that, and it's like, there was no, okay, let's calm, let's think here for a minute. Let's be calm. Let's not go by how I feel.
Well, and the people who are thinking about this, but they're watching everybody else overreact, and then they're like, well, if I stop here and think, then I'm going to miss out on the toilet paper rolls that are no longer there.
That's right. What do I do?
Opposite of that too. There's the people that don't think. Like he was talking about COVID. I saw this coming, and I went to our chief as the infection control officer. I said, we need to start over masks. We need to get extra gloves. We get this. And he's like, we don't need to do that. This is on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
And I'm like, our fire department is, most of the employees of the city are employees of Atlanta, Hartsfield, Jackson International Airport. Keyword, international. It's going to be here. Yeah. And he just didn't listen. He's like, we're small city. It's never going to happen. Yeah. And one thing, boom.
Yeah.
And that's panic.
And that's the sad thing. It's just like, you let your emotions, and that in a different type, that's almost like not denial, but you almost think, oh yeah, that's, it's not going to, we put ourselves in that place. Yeah, it won't happen. There's not going to be a whatever, it's, we don't want to believe it, and that's fine. I mean, it's okay. But I think that's okay with your kids, like you let the young think, yeah, everything's fine. And you kind of give them a little bit of space. But you yourself, that's the part of being an adult, you kind of sit there and go, well, this is what's happening. This is who's dying. This is who's sick. This is how it's spread, what we know. And you just sort of have to go with it. And we saw it even in the 80s with AIDS, and now we saw it with COVID and stuff. All these reactions are so emotional, and I understand the emotion. We all feel it, we all feel that. But as adults, I think we just got to slow down and kind of go, hey, I'm all for a little bit more reason, because that's how we survive. We don't want to just run around and start hitting and shooting people. We survive from just being calm and going, okay, what can we do? I was disappointed. That's all with these things that come along. I'd rather see people be more supportive, even if people they don't agree with, and kind of go, okay, you don't need the vaccine. Let's talk. How are you feeling? Just be more supportive rather than call each other names. That's the only thing that really disturbed me. And so when you see that with common people working and stuff, I think it's easier to understand cults as well, in a sense of people are lost. They don't know where to go. They're feeling a lot of emotions that lead people to do silly things at times. And, they get caught up and it's too late, once you're isolated and away from people and friends, and you don't have someone you can talk to, it's where it starts.
Right.
Yeah.
Alan, we're going to ask a paranormal question. Do you have any experience with the paranormal, or seen Bigfoot, or?
No, I haven't seen Bigfoot, at least that I'm aware of. I've seen some big hairy guys with big feet, but I think they're human, so I don't want to say that. I worked with the Most Haunted team out of the UK, and Kieran O'Keefe, and all, they did that show for years, and then stuff like that. So I'd say that I've had a few things, but I'm not positive on them. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like when things happen, you're kind of like, wow, that's kind of weird. And things. And I think there's just a lot of things we don't understand about the paranormal. And I think, it's just out there. I don't necessarily believe in Bigfoot. I'm not a big Bigfoot follower. As for ghosts and stuff, I think there's a lot of possibility there as to dead people and what happens and stuff, and spirits and stuff like that. I think there's things around us, and we haven't come to the place where we know what we're getting, So that's the best way I can leave it. I don't want to say anything else.
No,
but
we're all surrounded by energy. I mean,
Yeah.
everything around us is energy. And
totally.
we're learning I heard him say there's another dimension, and the computers are now in quantum mechanics outside of this dimension. They're so fast. And I'm like, how do you process this?
Yeah.
So
I think it's going so fast so far. I think it's beyond what we can really understand. Personally, I think we get a little bit, and I think it's for the next generation who gets it. He keeps passing it forward, and we'll get somewhere. But for us, I always say to people, have a good time.
That's the journey,
Have a
not
good-
the destination.
Well, yeah, because a lot of times you're on the ghost things too, and I love it when people are really scared. Like I think, and I remember being a kid and going through that with some of the ghosts and stuff, and I would be the kid that turned around and goes, what's the worst they're going to do? Kill us, and then we're a ghost, and then I'll slap them, right? That was my attitude as a kid, right? I just thought, well, what's the big deal? It's crazy, but I love that because I still do that even with my paranormal people that are into the different shows and groups.
I
always
think
do that.
my son asked me. Oh,
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say my son asked me. He's like, "Mom, when you die, can you come back and haunt me?"
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
like, sure.
Yeah.
But what about aliens? Because you hear this now, it's almost every day on the news. Oh, they're going to come out and tell us about the aliens.
If that turns me off more than if it just happens, so much of what you hear and there's always reasons for things like that now. I don't really buy into a lot of what you get on the news from people and stuff, and especially U.S. news. Sorry, I don't.
No,
but
no,
it's just it's so politically driven right now. It's so everything gets based on that now. You don't just get a story about grandma running over the kids or something. It's like there's always big stuff, and it's like, and then it's weirdest stuff because you'd hear it and you go, oh my God. And then the next day, it's totally something different.
Yes.
And what they said yesterday or last week doesn't seem to matter anymore. So it's all about this. I think that it's true. I think we live in such a massive, big universe with all these planets. Yeah, there's other beings.
Awful waste of space if there wasn't.
Yeah. But there is. There's got to be. Whether they're bothering with us, I don't know. I think, it's like us bothering with ants, some of them, what I mean? It's just,
they're here. We don't even acknowledge them unless they bite you. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And because they probably look at us, because if they're that far ahead that they could just be here and be hidden and be all these things that you hear, I think it's kind of out of our control. They're just they don't think of us as equal or as whatever something they're concerned with. They look at us like ants. It's just something like, oh, get rid of that group over there. That's bugging me. Because they would have by now, and it would have been a contact thing. And I think a lot of and people are really paranoid. Yes. And I think a lot of sightings of UFOs too are maybe Russia or other countries that do things, experimental things just as we do. I think there's a lot of that. And then there's also a lot of unknown stuff. So, you got to keep an open mind. I'm very open to it. I just think that I don't think they're going to come out with any breaking news.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be
no, I think that and I think it would have sort of already kind of happened. I think if for the most part there might be secrets and certain things going on. But I don't think it's anything too major. But I'm open to it. If they come out tomorrow and say, hey, we've got Alien Joe here and he's going to take over, and okay.
There'll be a lot of people going, I knew it.
I knew it. Yeah. I just hope that he does things better than
that's kind of my hopes too down here in the States. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just hope that things get, like I said, because again, I sound like a broken record when I talk to people, but I always say, got to turn it around and be positive. People got to be positive.
You know,
and be
you're
more,
that guy sitting on the front porch with a beer and yelling at the kids, "Get off my lawn!" So
yeah, that's it. No, I just look at things like you got to be more. Look at what we have that's good, and
Exactly.
move forward with it so that the kids next time have a better future. They can take that, just like our parents. We all want something better for the kids, so let's do something now that makes it better. And the people that hate each other right now, you know, and there's like, oh, I hate this, I hate that. You just kind of go, okay, you guys do. Okay, you don't like that. Okay, but how do we make it so your kids don't feel this way? You know,
Yep.
And every time you see the wars, like, with, the wars going on with Israel and stuff like that, and I always think, geez, what an opportunity to sit there and kind of go, okay, yeah, we hate you. You hate us. The 75-year-old Palestinian, Iranian, or Israeli could sit there and say that. Like Netanyahu could, okay, listen, we hate each other. That's not going to change. But what can we do for the 10-year-old? They don't. But as long as we keep doing this, they will.
That's
so
right.
How can we change that? What can we do? And I just want someone to do that as a leader. That's all. They don't have to have good looks and charm and all that.
One over here and one over here and put them both on each side and go, all right.
Yeah.
You can't play in the sandbox anymore. Literally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, literally. And just kind of go, because you want it better for the kids. You want this to stop. This is just going to keep happening and happening and happening as long as you keep shooting each other. It's got to be to a point where we're going to go, no, we don't need to do that. Yeah, we don't like each other. Fair enough. We don't have the same religion. Fair. But how do we make it better?
But we live on this
kids?
Planet. How can we get along
Yeah,
and the next generation survive?
And it might be too late for some of those people because they're older and they've lived their whole life this way. But they must see that it's just going to keep happening for the five-year-old kids right now who don't know anything, really. They don't know any better. They don't understand it. How do we make this so they don't? At least some of them, like, make it better. I sound corny, but as I get older, I'm really kind of following into that. I kind of go, no, let's just do something good with what we have rather than something bad. That's, and I write these terrible, dark stories.
but I think what you're saying is it comes to with age, because, there was a point in time when I'd be like, come on, let God sort them out. And now I'm like, can you two just knock it off?
Yeah.
My son said it best, that the only thing that you get out of war is death. You don't get peace. You just get a time of a break in between.
You get more money. They love that.
Yeah, there's a good cash flow.
Cost is very expensive. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the thing is, you look at all these young people that are being bombed and killed, and your whole families, your house is blown up, your parents, you lose half your family, your 5-year-old. 20 years from now, you're going to be angry. You're going to, and some of those are going to do something bad. And they'll do the same thing over and over again because it's got to stop. And the only people that can make it stop are the adults, not the 5-year-old. So that we've got to take action in that way. And I think that's what we're missing. And again, that's
if America's going to be the big stick, we need to do it to both sides, not just one.
Yeah. Oh, totally. It's all about, like I said, you learn to live with what you don't have to move in with someone because they're, you don't like whatever, you're not forced to live that way. You can live your way. You have that freedom.
Yeah.
Just to be polite and let people be people. And we don't need to get into all that stuff. I don't know. Just, look at what we've got, and go out and have a good time. Some people like McDonald's, some people don't. You know what I mean? It's like,
That's
No,
how
McDonald's.
they also divide us. There's Wendy's, there's McDonald's, there's Android, there's Apple. It's always there's left, there's right.
Okay, stop. I'm getting hungry now.
It's a conspiracy.
It
In-N-Out Burger is all behind it all. Yeah.
Whataburger. So
Yeah. It's
Yep.
a conspiracy, man. They did it on purpose.
and what about that Burger King? We got to take him out.
Yeah, that's it. That's it, man. You see what he
That
was wearing
creepy
last week?
anyhow.
Yeah, you see how he dresses? My God, there's something strange about that guy. You know,
That's right.
Not in the
Alan,
side.
I appreciate you for putting up with me, and especially for me being so stupid. I want to make sure you tell everybody where they can find your stuff. If they want to get in touch with you, how they can do it.
Well, I'll give him your phone number.
It's actually in the show notes.
Yeah, it's the best way. I just alanrwarren.com, because that connects you with the books, the shows, social media. Everything's on there. I'm on most social media, and the website, and the books are available just about everywhere. Most bookstores, Amazon, all those fun places. You know, it's not hard to find. You type my name in, and don't believe half the stuff people say when you type that. Okay, it's just made up. It's just, it's podcast hosts saying stuff about me. Yeah, no, that's the website's the best place, I would say. But and if people can follow or join me on any of the social media and stuff, I'm pretty flexible and easy to get along with. So, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on, and I'm apologize we've had to reschedule and go through stuff. But
no,
the main thing is we got you now. So
yeah, I'm not leaving.
Well, hey, that's right.
He won't let me leave either. So
yeah, I'm not leaving.
The radio station may cut us off, but it's okay.
That happens.
But I do want you to come back, and I mean that, because we went by really quick, and plus with as many things as irons as you got in the fire, I'm sure you'll have something else coming up soon. So
yeah, I'm doing a series of fiction stuff too, so which I think will be good, personally, but I think it'll be better than anything. The Manson book is the best book I've ever written, I think, to be honest. It's the first time I've had a book that I felt really good about, and I didn't care how well it did. You know what I mean? Like, it was one of those where you go, wow, this is great. Yeah, I just love it. And it doesn't matter. It can sell 1,000, it can sell 1. And it's doing actually okay. And it's already won an award. Woo! Good. Actually 2. I just heard today I'm getting another one for it. It's like, wow.
Don't let your head swell up and you forget us little guys.
Oh no, I'm exactly how I was. I'm just a silly little guy that I'm so fortunate to get anything. I can't believe that I can actually write something and people buy it. I mean, it's just amazing,
right?
Yeah, because it's not something I thought about as a kid. I never thought, I'm going to be. I was a radio freak. Don't get me wrong. I was really into radio. I would listen to radio more than watch TV. So. Yeah. So that's there. But the writing, it's just amazing. You know, I'm thrilled. I'm taking nighttime courses too now.
Nice.
In writing?
Yeah. Well,
you already write.
No, but you know what? One thing I learned was, when I was first working with editors at a publisher, they were like, oh my God. And they were saying things and they write all that stuff on and send it back and all. And I realized I didn't pay attention in English. I did, high school, when you're going through and all that, they talk about, the different, what different things I barely knew what a verb was, it's like, what? And they're throwing all this stuff at me, and I realized, God, I should have listened.
The best way to learn all these things is to homeschool your kids through the first 4 years of school. I learned so much more doing that than I ever learned going through college. I'm like, oh, that's why we use "a" versus "an." It's when we use an "an" when the next word starts with a vowel. Yeah.
No, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take advantage of, I'm in a place where people actually ask me to write books, publishers, and I get this, and that's amazing. So I'm just trying to be better at what I do. It just gives me a better range. That's all.
New tool. That's
Oh, yeah.
basic.
Well, it just, you get better range at doing stuff. So I don't know. It just doesn't make me a better writer per se, but when I send it in to just like
It's less work
at
they
least,
have to do.
yeah, and I feel more comfortable. I remember the first few books, I thought, oh my God, this is terrible. Oh, I guess all the corrections and that.
I know,
This
it's
is
pretty
awful.
scary when it comes back and you're like,
Keep your
is there
editors off high
anything
blood
that they
pressure meds.
didn't change?
Yeah. Yeah. And then when I was lucky too, because I'd met one of the editors at the with one of the publishers, and I hit it off with her really well. And now I use her for everything. So what I do is I write, then I go through her, and when we're finished, then it gets sent out to a publisher, and I feel so much better because I feel so much stronger. Here you go. And I know it's not going to come back with all this stuff.
They still find stuff to cut out.
Yeah, but I still feel like more. I just feel more secure sending it, rather than because they don't like the story, they don't like that. But at least it's not like really where they're like, oh, change this, change that. This whole paragraph's got to go, and this whole chapter, this is no good, and it's like. So this is that. It really helps. People help. It's good to get kind of people.
It is. And I learned something every week from interviewing the authors and talking to people. So
yeah, that's why I do it too, because I learn from people, and you pick up things, or you relate to what they say, and then you go, oh yeah, I like that, or yeah, I do that, or I understand that. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Makes you feel less lonely.
Well, yeah, because then you realize that we're all in the same boat, except for James Patterson.
Yes,
he's in his own ship, But
I don't know where he finds the time to keep. He must not have young kids running afoot.
Well, yeah, he's absolutely crazy. But but a lot of you meet these people and you talk to them and you start to realize that they have the same issues or issues like what you have, and you realize we're just all working at it, and it's not any different. So it makes you feel better too, I think.
Oh yeah.
You just realize. Yeah. That's it.
I hope you're able to come back, because I had so many questions that I wanted to ask.
Qu'est-ce que c'est? Yeah, I'm always available, just about always. I mean, I'm doing a lot of stuff. But
work all the time.
I do. I get up at 4 or 5 in the morning, and I pretty much go between the dogs and work and all that and different stuff. I'm pretty much going until now. Like it's 8 o'clock. I'll turn on some Match Game from the 70s. Do you remember that? Because it's really thoughtless and it's silly. And it takes you out of the world today, right? It just takes me sit with my dogs.
I call it mind dumping.
Yeah, but it's kind of cool because it's funny. It makes you laugh a few times. Get the dogs, have a soda, and just watch some silly stuff for a while. And it's nothing to do with today, too. You know what I mean? Like anything that comes up is 50 years ago. So it just doesn't mean anything. It's silly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my break time. Yeah.
Well, go enjoy your break. And,
yes.
We will get up with Mickey and see when he'll let you come back and be with us. So
yeah, he's a tyrant. Help. Talk about cults. Help.
Shh, you could be watching.
Yeah. Help. Get me out. No, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, I'm around all the time, so you can just in most days I can do things unless I'm doing something else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you ever need a guest, let me know. I can talk a lot. So
yeah, you talk about what you do.
Yeah. I even get a Bigfoot story. So there you go.
Oh, you see, that's good. That's good. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
We talk about Bigfoot.
Alan, have a great night.
You too.
Thanks for coming on.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye. It goes by too quick.
It does.
We ran over. As a matter of fact, we're going to get in trouble with the radio station. So we ran over. They haven't. We're still on the air. Thank you, Australia, for allowing us to run over. We appreciate it. So now I will say, WRFN, WZQR, you do not get the extra. You get 56 minutes You get 56 minutes side A, 56 minutes side B. That's it. They cut us with commercials. So if you want to get the whole show, you got to come over here to the Sportcat shows. And then sometimes we get after hours with Jen, where we learn about her Prius or how she's beat somebody in judo or something, or airsoft. So it's always we didn't get a new Marvel from you this week. So I'm sure Chris is disappointed. So
Except that apparently Chris thinks I was born like over 2,000 years ago.
Well, that their guest thought you were a serial killer. So.
Or that was chummy with one, and I was like, I don't even know that. I'm gonna have to go look this up. I mean, he's like, Canada's pretty big.
Well, don't feel bad when I'm talking to the radio station down in Australia, and you don't get a vision of how big something is, and I'm thinking, what's like driving to Florida or something? No, it's like driving to California from one side of Australia to the other. I'm like, the weather's different on the East Coast.
There's like how many time zones?
Yeah. So I've appreciated my Australian audience for putting up with my redneck stupidity of not knowing that. So, and I've long given up on trying to pronounce city names correctly. So please don't at me anymore. I just give up. Next week, Jen, I hope you're back with me next week. You better be.
I'll try.
We have Christian Kinney. He is the creator of Killer Cards Tarot Cards, which is going to be interesting. He does tarot cards with the murderers and killers that we were just talking about. And then James Hill, you remember him from Norfolk. He's coming back to visit with us, so an author. So we get a good lineup next week. So, and I don't know about where you're at, Jen, but it's getting hotter and hotter here in the South. So
I'm not sure we're going to get a summer this year.
Oh gosh. Yeah, well, too late for the South. They say, it's going to cool again here in the southern states.
It's all up here that's been cool. We've just had nothing but rain.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to get that in like the end of the week for several days. But
well, maybe you can take all our rain. I'm happy with that. I will not complain.
The heat's coming right back. So I hate it. Yeah. So everybody, thank you for tuning in. Please remember to hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this. Tell a friend, tell a phone, tell a fireman. I don't know. Tell somebody that you enjoyed the show, and come back and see us again next week. Brenda and I will be doing the Sportcat Daily Gazette starting next week. We've said that for 2 weeks now, but she's been sick. I've been sick. People have been sick, so it just hasn't worked out. But we're going to come back. We're going to do some midget wrestling or something to kick off the show. It'll be something crazy. So
better be worth it.
Yeah, you never know with us. So, you don't know. Brenda's deathly afraid of midgets.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yes. And Chris, there'll probably be a bar in Nashville that writes a lot of it. So. It's an inside joke. Everybody have a great night. Thank you for tuning in Australia. Thank you for having us tickle your ears and allowing us to be a part of your day. Have a great one. We will see you soon. Bye.